humbly offer our humble obeisances, even to the technology itself, because it has become Krishnaized with the message that it is being used for. Books can either be demonic or they can be divine. And when they're divine, they're instruments of Srila Vyasadeva. And when they're demonic, then they're simply in the hands of Kali. But yes, I think that, I'm from an era where we saw it as science fiction that someone would be able to whip out a small device from their pocket and speak to someone on the other side of the world. I come from the time when you picked up a phone, and by the time the different operators had put you through to India, you were shouting into the phone. And then you'd get cut off.
Yeah, it would take, when we were in India trying to call America, it was like you have to get to the post office from wherever you were. Then you'd have to wait in a line in the post office. And then the chances that you would actually connect from India to America or England, that was like 50-50, wasn't it? Or 60-40. Oh, you young people, you're all spoiled. You have no idea how spoiled you are. Now, if it takes more than a nanosecond to download something, you get irritated.
Yes. When they're 7 miles high up in a plane and complain about the internet connection.
Yeah, right. I think also the answer to this question is based on what I have seen, and this goes back to what I was saying before, that bhakti is based on faith. And so your guru is a very important connection in your life, your diksha or siksha guru. So if you have no faith in anyone, and some people say, I only have faith in Prabhupada, okay. But Prabhupada might say, well, if you have faith in me, then you should have faith in the people I appoint. So if you just don't have faith in somebody local, why would it make sense to be forced to take diksha from them? It doesn't make sense. Or maybe you have faith, but you're not that inspired. So inspiration and faith are fundamental. So it seems essentially important. There are temples that I know of where the temple president does not want anyone to get initiated other than from one guru, because then that guru, who is his guru, can tell everybody what to do, and it makes it easy for him.
Many places.
Yeah. So, but that doesn't seem to be right, does it? Doesn't feel right, does it?
I'm persuaded.
So that gives it. Okay, let's go to the next question. Comment from Kamaniya. You're quote by Mahatma Prabhu. You can't legislate a relationship. You can try, but it doesn't work. My husband joined 30 years ago under the zonal system. Then later the guru fell. So the problem here that we saw with some gurus was they didn't help their disciples connect with Prabhupada. So their guru was everything, and Prabhupada was kind of like historical figure. You saw that? So when their guru fell, there was no Prabhupada to fall onto, because he was like a little ambiguous. Their relationship with Prabhupada was a little ambiguous. But those, as I said in another class, but what I noticed, the gurus who kind of subordinated themselves very clearly to Prabhupada, clearly communicated their subordination to Prabhupada, those devotees that didn't have as difficult a time, because all their faith wasn't reposed just in their guru. My guru is everything. If he goes, I'm finished. You see the same thing? Yeah, so that's important. It's important to note for all of us that relation with Prabhupada is more important than you might think. Kamaniya says, this is such an honor and a blessing to be privy to this conversation. Thank you so much. Okay, you are welcome. The reason that Kripamoya Prabhu is here is that he's staying with us. So if we can coerce him, he can come on Friday. I have a bit challenging question. Krishna Karshini is asking. I have a bit challenging question. How can we distinguish between real inspiration from the Guru and just a naive sentiment? I remember myself when I was 15 and I became a devotee, and I felt inspired by Indra Swami, and I chose him as Guru. See more, but I can't see more because it's copied. Maybe you can click on see more and then paste it on here. You want to start answering the question?
What half the question?
Yeah, I think we kind of understand a bit of it. How you can distinguish between inspiration from the Guru and a naive sentiment. And she said she was 15 when she became devotee. Felt very inspired. Chose him as a Guru, but I think she's saying, but now
there seems to be a but.
Yeah, but I think what she's saying is, but now maybe I wouldn't have chosen him. Or but now the inspiration is different, or but now Prabhupada is my main inspiration.
Something.
Yeah. We'll get the more. Would you like to start with or do you want to wait for the more? Here.
I've read in Shastra that
here it is.
Oh.
And because of the sentiment 30 years ago, I chose a Guru I would never ever choose now and who is not inspiring me at all. So it looks that my initial inspiration was not real. It was just sentiment that did not last. Okay. That's a hot seat question. And so if you don't mind, you're good at hot seat questions.
Oh, you want me to say that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
If you don't mind.
Sure. Well, there's a traditional understanding of initiation, which is a function carried out by a guru. And then there is something Mahatma Prabhu was talking about, which was faith and inspiration. And although from one point of view, they have to be clearly together, seems to me that in traditional times, you may perhaps get initiated by someone that, it depends where you're looking. Are you looking in the history of our sampradaya? Or are you looking in the history of initiations throughout the history of Sanatana Dharma? Because sometimes it is functional, and sometimes because we change, the person who inspires us changes, and we look for different things. For instance, I used to be a brahmachari, and I wouldn't think of having anybody but a sannyasi spiritual master, even if I think even if I was not presented with Prabhupada, because we look for a person who is emblematic of a perfected vision of ourselves. We think, I would like to be like this person, therefore let me take initiation from him. So we see quite often brahmacharis, they will only get initiated by a sannyasi spiritual master, whereas perhaps the struggling householders of the world, they look for a householder guru because he or she will understand them and be able to, fully commiserate with their struggles in life. So we choose a guru or an inspiration based on the current circumstances that we're going through. I have now been a devotee for coming up to 50 years, you more than 50 years. And so perhaps we can both say that the devotees who inspire us now are different than the devotees who used to inspire us years ago.
Yeah.
Different times, because as we change, we find different people inspirational.
Oh my God.
And different people helpful.
That's going to be my
What help do I need?
Oh, yeah.
In other words, I'm now
It's a good point.
66. I used to be, well, I used to be 50 years younger than I am now. The type of thing that I was looking for that would inspire me back then was, yes, a certain type of person.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a different type of person now to be my inspiration. So I think that's something that can change. It can be volatile, and we can't. Again, we can't legislate for that. But did I choose Prabhupada? I didn't choose him. Do I regret it? No. But at the same time, when I first met Prabhupada, I wasn't inspired. They said, wait, don't, because I was thinking of going back to school after my summer vacation. And so they said, well, don't go back yet, because Prabhupada is coming. I said, okay, I'll wait and I'll meet the person who's the origin of all things. And during his first class, there were two devotees who earnestly had questions for him. And he sort of made light of the questions. To one person, he directly said this. He said, this is not an important question. And I thought immediately, but it was an important question to him. He obviously put his hand up in front of everybody. Why didn't you answer the question? Then I thought, well, let me go with this. And then I walked upstairs and I walked into Prabhupada's room, and I was the first one to get in there. And I just sort of stood there again, looking at the guru. And someone else came in, and Prabhupada immediately was different from his Bhagavatam class persona. He was now convivial and conversational, and he said, oh, such and such, I've seen your boy in school. He's doing very nicely. He's a very happy boy. How are you? How's your wife? So I thought, okay, he's a completely different person. I like this Prabhupada more than I like Prabhupada downstairs. But all I'm saying is that no choice was offered, and I had a functional initiation, which was not given by Prabhupada himself. So he didn't give me initiation. He didn't speak the mantra. It was all done through others. So it was Prabhupada by extension. So I'm saying it can be that you get initiated by one person who then later on, in your case, may not inspire you because times have moved on. You were 15, you're not 15 now. And I don't think that's wrong. But at the same time, we should give to the guru who did initiate us the gratitude and the respect. Continue that through.
So you're saying that what happened for her is not wrong or unnatural. It may happen to many, especially those who take initiation when they're young. The younger they are, the more likely that is to happen. Another thing that is going to happen to many of you is that as you progress in your bhakti, you're going to start focusing in certain areas of service. So let's say you want to go into service in the academic world. And so then you have the devotees who've gone that route, who are also gurus, like Ridananda Maharaj, Krishna Chaitra Maharaj, and I don't know who else, but they're in that circle. And you're thinking, well, I would like to work with them and take guidance from them because they understand academia. They understand how I could serve there. So that would be natural. Not necessarily does it anyway interfere with your relationship with your guru. It's just that that kind of guidance is not the guidance your guru can give as well as they can give. And that could happen. So I think that also is natural, and historically
there is also this thing that Gaura Das Babaji was talking about this subject. And he said, a man will tolerate so many insults from his wife, so many insults from his daughter-in-law, so many insults from his son-in-law. He said, but if the guru just says once, one thing that offends him, he said the disciple will immediately dispense with that guru. We are super tolerant when it comes to our biological relations and very intolerant when it comes to how we feel the guru should be treating us. He didn't look at me properly. He didn't write back to a letter I wrote to him. He didn't, he didn't come to my house when I invited him. He didn't let me know he was coming to the country. All of these are perceived as slights. And if we're very, very sensitive, then we may fall out with our guru. And that is not very helpful.
Yeah, I think that kind of thing happens, but it's less common than what something she's referring to, where you may feel it's just like exactly what you said in the beginning, who you are, where you're going in life, what you now expect of a guru, what you need. The guru gave you diksha, it doesn't represent that at all.
Well, for instance, it's like the guru may try giving, he's a sannyasi, but he may try giving you marriage advice, or child rearing advice. And you can find that very so unconvincing that you think he's no longer relevant to me in my life.
Yeah, it's possible.
He still is an inspiration to some, but I.
Well, just like you said, as a brahmachari, that guru is everything. And then as a grihasta, not so relevant anymore. Or vice versa. You take diksha when you're grihasta, and then, now you're older and you're more renounced.
Yes, indeed.
And maybe your guru's not as renounced as other gurus, and that's where you're going. Or, some gurus are very much into going very deeply into Shastra, like extremely deeply into Shastra. And that may be at a certain point of your life, that's where you want to go, and your guru, that's not his service or even his capacity. So it's not a problem. We can have many Siksha gurus. So,
but there is a phenomenon. Well, we're on the subject of Guru Druha. Guru Druha means ingratitude to the guru, because no matter whether you have faith in him at the moment, or find inspiration, or find him accessible or relevant, or any of that, the fact that once, way back, he gave you something which was a very precious gift, the seed of bhakti, should always, throughout your life, be acknowledged. Prabhupada was on a morning walk in Mayapur, and they came to a puddle, and the disciples, Prabhupada reached out his hand, took a disciple's hand to help him across the puddle. Prabhupada stepped across the puddle, and on the other side, he somewhat violently threw the disciple's arm away. And devotees were looking, and it was an uncommon thing for Prabhupada to do. And Prabhupada stopped and turned around. He said, "This is Guru Druha." He said, "I help you, and then you throw me away." So there's obviously a tendency, and it's a tendency that I have noticed when a person takes initiation in the, let's just say the rosy years of, say, the first 2 years of their practicing bhakti. They take initiation. Then they go through not exactly a dark night of the soul, but a reassessment of their previous enthusiasm. I had one devotee come to me and he said, "I don't think I've ever been enthusiastic in spiritual life." I said, "But I know you. You've been a temple president. You led kirtan. You've given wonderful classes. You've done so much service. What do you mean?" He said, "I think it was all mental concoction. That's what it feels to me like right now." So we had to unpack that. And what he was going through was obviously a difficult period in his spiritual life, but it was causing him to investigate to retrospectively look at his spiritual life and find fault in himself that wasn't actually there at the time. But when you're going through that period, maybe a Saraswati 7-year period or something, you may look and see that nothing that you ever did was full of inspiration. I think that's a very common phenomenon. My guru used to be like this, but he's changed so much. And maybe he's still inspiring, but you yourself are not inspired. Is that his fault? Well, that's something to be discussed, but we all go through those periods. That's another
topic. The guru change. You don't change. You're the same, and your guru changes. That's also possible.
Yeah.
One guru said, I was told, he said to his disciples, he said, don't listen to anything I said before such and such a day, because I've changed. I don't agree with everything I said. Therefore, we take shelter of the Siksha Guru, and then we appreciate our Diksha Guru as the person who brought us, led us, and now the Siksha Guru is more important. And if the Siksha Guru is more important, they're more important. It's just...
Again, you can't legislate that.
Yeah, it is. But as long as it doesn't create offense towards the Diksha Guru, then that's important. Offense is like, the fence can destroy great devotees. So we have to be careful. Yeah, I don't know if it's controversial, but it's, it's reality. Sometimes reality is controversial, I guess. And your reality may be different from others' reality. Others may not go through that, others may. We all live in different realities. Doesn't our commentator ask, doesn't our Siksha Guru system embrace, resolve a situation like Krishna Karshani's? Yeah, it's supposed to. It will also depend on the Diksha Guru as well. The Diksha Guru has to be happy that this disciple is taking shelter of the Siksha Guru, which he should be. Okay, what happened? Would Prabhupada be okay with behavior of some Vaishnavas in ISKCON? Trying to get me in trouble, Scarlett? I could say, if Prabhupada wasn't okay, he would tell them. And Prabhupada not being okay doesn't mean he doesn't love them. He would just, he would correct them. Yeah, definitely. That's the Guru's job. Now, Prabhupada's not here to say who's not okay. So then I could rephrase your question. Would Prabhupada be not okay with the people I'm not okay with? And that I can't say yes, because I don't know. So that, you want to say something about that?
Well, two things for me. Prabhupada was always the Hare Krishna movement under Prabhupada's guidance was always in a state of dynamic fluidity. It was changing. Every 3 to 6 months, Prabhupada would send out some letter saying, we have done this, now, from now on, we will do it like this. So it meant that there was a sort of course correction function being performed by Prabhupada. And part of that course correction was, he has done this, he should not do like this, relieve him of his post, or you would remove different devotees why is he saying like this? I do not listen to him anymore, I suspend his authority, things like that. So it was a constant ongoing process. I would like to think that we have the same process in place, but I think I must say that we don't, or it is a little slow.
It's more difficult.
It's more difficult and
more sensitive.
It was Prabhupada's movement, he started it, and therefore he could put people in a position or remove them from that position. He could crush them or elevate them within a second. We don't have that supreme autonomy anymore.
Also, what I think is important to understand is, as I said, what I think is not okay, Prabhupada doesn't necessarily think is not okay, because sometimes what's not okay for me is because of who I am. So if I were mistreated in the past and somebody mistreats me now, let's say if I was traumatized by mistreatment and then I'm mistreated now, that could be a very traumatic experience for me. And I could think, well, this person should be removed. Look at what they said.
To me.
Yeah, but they said the same thing to other devotees who weren't traumatized by mistreatment or abuse. And they just, oh, he's having a bad day, he's a nice guy, So you also have to take that into consideration, because we respond and experience the world, respond to and experience things based on our past experiences. So we all respond differently. And so sometimes we think, oh, this person's really bad. Look what they said. Look what they did. But that could just be me. Maybe what they did wasn't perfect and ideal, but sometimes we can exaggerate the depth of the wrongdoing because of our own past experience, because we're sensitive to that kind of behavior.
Yes. On the other hand, ISKCON, I believe, is quite correctly working towards a body of, for instance, ethical behavior, statutes of ethical behavior, whereby all of us internationally agree that this is okay and that's not okay.
Yeah.
So that is something helpful.
Yeah. Both.
And that's, that represents progress. This is a good question.
Okay, another hot seat question. Some very senior devotees say that they are reading other Sampradayas books as Srila Prabhupada was busy preaching to Westerners and he did not point out some topics. Should we take such devotees association who don't have
faith
in Srila Prabhupada? Is it because they don't have faith, or is that an assumption you're making? Can we read other Sampradayas books? As an EFI devotee, I need to know. Anyone answer?
Yes, I get that point. But as someone who does read quite widely, I will say two things. One is that everything is in Prabhupada's books. And it's quite surprising when we, for instance, I'll think, why didn't Prabhupada comment about this? And then suddenly it'll be, not in a mystical way, but I'll open up one of Prabhupada's books and staring me in the face is Prabhupada's comments on a particular subject that I thought that he didn't comment on. I think you can't decide that a subject that you're interested in is not in Prabhupada's books until you've read them. Therefore, the main thing is to read. And it's not just by going to Srimad Bhagavatam class or Gita class in the evenings that you will get everything that you need to know. Therefore, some gurus are asking their disciples to make a commitment to the 4 regulated principles, 16 rounds, and an hour's study a day. It's just another way of making sure people understand how serious it is. The other thing is that I have found, particularly looking at some of the difficulties that I have personally had to live with, and just, as the lady on there said that her husband had not difficulties, but the system presented him with difficulties. I think both myself and Mahatma have lived through ISKCON and all its difficulties for half a century. And so sometimes we are pulling out the remaining hair that we have, trying to figure out how would another Sampradaya deal with this situation? Has it ever been dealt with before? And I've come up with some answers by reading not philosophy so much of other Sampradayas, but history. And I found that helpful. And so, yes, that's my thought.
One time, Giriraj Swami gave an answer that I think is appropriate. And it was a statement that Prabhupada made. He said, only eat a cup of dal and 2 chapatis if that's all you can digest. But if you can digest more, then you can eat more. I think some devotees can digest everything they read in a way that helps them edify what Prabhupada said, come closer to the essence of what Prabhupada was giving. And I think some devotees, by reading everything else, can get further from what Prabhupada wanted. They could also potentially become proud. They could also start thinking ISKCON doesn't know these things. They should know these things. I know these things. I am therefore better, more knowledgeable. So there are some potential dangers. But Prabhupada was asked this question on a morning walk. And he said, yes, you can read other books. And then a devotee said, but Prabhupada, shouldn't they read? He said, but they're not even reading your books. And so he said, yeah, so what's the point of reading all these other books? First, you study my books. Well, you read my books, but you study my books. So that way, if you study deeply, then if you read other books, if there are different things. I think we were discussing, I don't know if it was you on Monday, or I was definitely discussing with the devotees here. There are things which are different from acharyas in their books. They're just like, Prabhupada didn't say it. They said something different. So now what do you do? And some devotees defer to those acharyas instead of Prabhupada. I don't know why, but they do. So then you're putting yourself in that situation. Who am I going to defer to now? So you have to be matured. And you clearly understand what Prabhupada's teachings. Otherwise you read something, and maybe that was what Prabhupada's teaching, but it doesn't sound like it, and you don't understand it, or it was applicable in another context. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is recommending at initiation you get your rasa and you start practicing it. That was first. That's the initiation. Get your rasa. Okay, but why don't you try Sakya rasa? See how that works for you. And then you come back to your guru. The Sakya rasa is not working. Okay, try conjugal. It was a sadhana. It's just, try this, see if this helps you. So we know Srila Bhaktisiddhanta didn't include that. So now you read the books of Bhaktivinoda Thakur who's doing it. And you're like, why don't we do this? He says it. And we follow Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Isn't he the great acharya? Didn't Prabhupada say, I'm just nothing compared to Bhaktivinoda Thakur? And then you get all confused. So you have to be careful. But it's time to stop. Chaitanya Dasi, can you save the questions? And we'll talk to Nadia. Maybe we'll take these questions on Friday, or Fridays for Russia. I don't know. If these topics are sensitive in Russia, I have no idea. Or they're needed in Russia, she thinks is a good idea.